Bună ziua, bine v-am găsit, doamnelor, domnilor. În această ediție discut alături de un invitat special din Marea Britanie. Este directorul regional al companiei Brisk în Marea Britanie. Companie Brisk, fondată în România de Claudiu Bisnel, cu afaceri extinse la nivel global și privim către tendințele și oportunitățile de piață, dar și fereastra largă de oportunități pe care compania Brisk o are la nivel global. Discutăm despre cum arată această piață, care sunt strategiile și cum se mișcă de asemenea și segmentul de investiții în Marea Britanie în contextul ieșirii și a Brexitului, care a provocat ceva tensiuni la nivel global. Mi se alătură discuției din Marea Britanie invitatul meu la această oră și o să continui discuția și interviul în limba engleză. So my guest is Mark Brownlee, Brisk Regional Director in United Kingdom. Hi, Mr. Brownlee. Welcome to our TV program.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
We are looking very close to what is happening on the markets, on various markets. So, watching our local Romanian-founded company Brisk, you are a regional director in the UK. So the things we can say at some point they are very different because there are two different markets, but there is one unity, one business unit strategy, if we put it like this into the context. Make us a short introduction of the office Brisk in UK, please.
Yeah, sure. Since about June time last year, Brisk Group has a UK presence in terms of an office and a director as myself. And prior to that, Brisk in Romania, Brisk Group had been working on some quite large-scale projects, Hinkley Point, some work at Heathrow and Manchester, and really having some more presence in the country has helped to grow the business within the UK context. And so really that's my role in opening up the UK office. And since that time, we've come at a number of different projects, a lot abroad, and used working collaboratively with Brisk Group in Romania, managed to secure some big clients. My background is I'm an architect. I've worked for 20 years in architecture and engineering, and so the focus within the UK context is more design-led, whereas some of the services in Brisk Group Romania, construction management and planning and project controls and all of that. But in particular, I bring a design management bent to the company. So currently, it's working with architects and engineers to better deliver their design projects earlier on in the projects, and this is strengthened by Brisk Group in Romania with the services that they offer in terms of project management, construction management, and really rigor around risk and quality program management.
Mm-hmm. So we are looking closely when the Brexit came up. I think even the business has changed a lot. What are the main differences right now after the Brexit?
Yeah, of course. I've started this business in the UK after Brexit, and whilst the UK is still kind of adjusting to the full implications of Brexit, just this week there's been shortages of salads and fruit and vegetables and things like this, caused by, in part, probably Brexit, but in other parts, different pressures within the market, like energy costs. In particular, the energy costs in growing produce and producing it in the winter. But within the context of this business, it's not been too bad. We're able to work globally, and because we're offering services rather than products, we're not bound by the kind of red tape that some businesses are in terms of getting products across the borders.
Mm-hmm. So, in terms of the business of the Brisk Group in UK, how does the business has changed during the last months? One, and the second one, what are the services that you provide and work right now in UK?
So yeah, the services, as I was saying before, is at the moment the projects are mostly design management projects. So that means really helping architects and engineers to deliver their projects from a design perspective. But Brisk Group in its entirety has a number of different services around helping clients to deliver their projects. So that could be all the way through from the beginning of a project, establishing the brief, and through to construction. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And in terms of what have I noticed that's changed? Aside from the legislation around employing people, sadly, a lot of resource that would have been available, human resource, I mean, in terms of people able to come to the United Kingdom and work freely, is affecting a lot of businesses within the UK. So whereas before someone could come and work very easily from within the EU, now that's much more difficult with a points-based system around employing people. And we can still work collaboratively between the businesses, between the UK and Romania, but in terms of freedom to move, it's just much more difficult. That's, I would say, is the main difference.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Looking on the locations where you are working on right now and the projects that Brisk UK is working on, name us, please, a few projects of the company right now in UK that you are managing right now.
So currently, because of the people we work with, I'm doing a lot in the Middle East, mostly Saudi Arabia. So we're working on a number of what they call giga projects in Saudi Arabia as part of the 2030 vision to modernize the country. And I'm not able to talk about specifics of projects because they're all under confidentiality agreements, but you can, throughout Saudi Arabia, there is very large master plan type projects, airports, and regional projects, regional redevelopment projects, which we've become involved in. And my sort of background and the contacts that I have are predominantly aviation or airport type projects. So it tends to be the work that we're winning is in airports and airport infrastructure. Mm-hmm. But these projects are of a massive scale with thousands and thousands of people involved without exaggeration. And so a company of our size has to strategically partner with bigger businesses in order to become involved in these projects. And that's the strategy that we've been engaged in so far.
Mm-hmm. What are the construction business opportunities between Brisk and Saudi Arabia? And this is just a business line, the airports and developing this side of infrastructure. And if there are any other business opportunities that you have been identified?
So there's so much construction work going on in Saudi Arabia in particular. There's and due to that, there's a kind of skills shortage around professional consultancy, which I think, Brisk Group in Romania has been working on Saudi Arabia projects for some time. So it's not particularly new, but it's just because there's a skills shortage, and the kind of professional people that are available within Romania, and because it's a very close to the time zone, it works really well. So from the UK, with the contacts and the projects, I see no reason why consultancy, engineering, architecture, kind of professional services like that, it works really well within the Saudi context.
Mm-hmm. So looking up, because we spoke about developing the airport infrastructure, looking on forward, after the pandemic has ended, we saw the traffic has increased a lot, globally speaking. How do you see this developing area, like airports and the entire infrastructure, keeping up the new sustainability measures that will be implemented all over the world?
Yes, this is a big topic, one that I could talk about for an hour. Of course, in 2019, the passenger numbers dropped dramatically all around the world due to the pandemic, and most regions are now in a recovery mode, and some, in fact, are back to 2019 levels in terms of passenger traffic, passenger numbers. Airport developments are intrinsically linked to passenger numbers, and passenger numbers drive demand, and therefore expansion works and refurbishment works and development works at airport projects don't happen unless there's passenger numbers. And of course that's what happened. There was a quiet period for a good number of years up until recently, where a lot of airport projects, particularly in the UK, stopped altogether. Within Saudi, they continued. Some very large airport projects carried on, and that was part of the refocus for efforts around what I was doing as part of the business. But now we're seeing passenger numbers come back in its entirety, in almost back to where they were. And of course, this has to be balanced with what you mentioned around sustainability, because rightly or wrongly, aviation transport has a negative link with sustainability. And so some of the projects that we get involved with more and more now is work around electrifying aviation. So there's short-range aircrafts technologies. Hundreds of companies are now developing prototypes for short-range, what they call eVTOL, so electric vertical takeoff and landing crafts for moving people in short distances, more like drones. And ultimately, the challenges around that is battery technology, which is a topic in itself. But really, I think the key to unlocking long-range aviation is some of the companies around what they're doing with hydrogen flight. In the short term, there's other things like what they call SAF, sustainable aviation fuels. And a lot of the industry is really driving a lot of these sustainability initiatives in order to encourage a future business, really. And it needs to diversify off fossil fuel, jet fuel, in order to become a long-term sustainable business. But right now, the demand is huge for flight, despite the negative impact that obviously burning aviation fuel has. And I think in the short term, it's going to be a mix of a lot of different things around perhaps carbon offsetting. There's different legislation coming in around offsetting of flights, which, passengers are generally happy to pay for, or perhaps it's going to come in as part of the ticket costs. But as I said, long term, it's around getting alternative fuels to work for aircrafts, which will ultimately make things like aviation, shipping, which is also has a huge carbon impact, to work as businesses.
Looking on the new needs of the infrastructure, how the things are has been remodeled after the pandemic, and the people traveling, maybe some of them different that they did in the past. What are the new needs of the airport infrastructure globally?
I think that there's a number of different ways where airports and travel is going to change in the coming years. One of the ways that has to be improved is security, and currently we have a process in place whereby you come to the airport, you get screened, and I think technology is going to improve things where there's going to become more focus on using technology to profile matched to an identity, so that attendance along a passenger route is monitored, and perhaps make the passenger process much more seamless in terms of having to stop and start along a passenger journey. And I think that's coming. It's being talked about in the industry for many, many years, and slowly with the regulations, that will be a thing to enable and unlock a more seamless passenger journey. And that will link to things like immigration and identity of passengers. There's been big changes as well with baggage and how that's handled and processed, and the security of baggage. And I think the airport of the future, or the travel journey of the future, might be that you can say goodbye to your bag at home when you leave, and travel independently of your bag, which would then travel on potentially in a different route, whether that be a drone or some other kind of delivery mechanism. So there's going to be things like this that change the airport and travel industry, and that's including rail. And obviously, there's a whole separate electrification process around vehicles and how people drive and transport. Automation is going to become big as well. So those are the things that I think will change, and we'll see that.
Is it possible to see all these changes next years, let's say in 10 years, in 5, when do you estimate that we can see these changes, as we've seen the changes after the 9/11 attack, when the rules of travel had been changed dramatically?
Yeah, I think we'll see a transition to electric flight quite in the same way as we're seeing it with cars, right? So more and more will come online over the next 10 years. The airline industry is one of the safest, and because of that, the most hardest to get around regulations and safety policies. And so things tend to take a long time to get regulated and approved. And so that really, it's not because the technology doesn't exist. It's that these things just take time to get approved from a safety perspective. But as they do, this will come online as things like perhaps helicopters become phased out, and then what they call urban air mobility. So short range flying cars, perhaps, to put it in a simple way.
Well, that's a challenge for some. That's a challenge, a serious one for some. But looking on the challenge side, we all have challenges in businesses day by day. What do you think is the most challenging one nowadays?
Challenges around the within the UK context has to be around labour. As an island nation, transport of goods and people in and out to enable business activities is going to be a continual challenge, particularly as we said earlier with Brexit. We seem to already be isolated by our geography, but have further reinforced that by Brexit. So for me, I think that's one of the biggest challenges, and hopefully our government here will help businesses become more integrated with Europe, because within the EU we need to be together despite Brexit almost.
Mm-hmm. Looking upon the Brexit effects right now, this is just the beginning, or where do you see the Brexit effects impacting business?
I think it's going to. I think we're still uncovering issues. So it's been a number of years as we've tried to transition, and I think supply of goods is going to continue to be an issue. But I think, and it will continue on for many years. But I think we'll come through it and find ways of working. Mm-hmm. It's recently a deal with last week, the deal with Ireland. So hopefully, as we progress, I'm optimistic that some of these teething problems around Brexit will iron themselves out now. Mm-hmm.
You had a lot of changes last year in 2022, also with the Prime Minister, and hit by the Brexit effects, hit by inflation, hit by various things, let's say like this. How do you see the present right now? How do you feel like the temperature of the entire context in UK?
I think a lot of people are struggling actually. There's a labour shortage, but at the same time, the cost of living crisis, as they call it here, probably in the EU as well, is hit by a number of different factors around energy supply, which there is some support in the UK, but a lot of people are struggling to heat their houses. A lot of people have the cost of living is just so much higher. So to buy food and to travel is much higher. So I think you've probably seen there's lots of strikes going on at the moment with nursing
medical
staff.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything from train drivers and train staff through to nurses, and that's just because the cost to live in the UK now is so much higher than it was 2 or 3 years ago, and a lot of people are struggling. Now, I don't know how we solve that. I think the key to it perhaps is to be more open with our EU partners, rather than closing doors. Mm-hmm. Certainly, I think the skills part of it in terms of resources is something that I think we need to be open with, and certainly from within the UK, being able to work with Brisk Group in Romania and the professional people that they have is fantastic, because there's how we sell the services and the rates in which we sell them for is one of the ways that the UK businesses can supplement shortages in resource like that from a professional context. And I know a lot of companies are using companies around Europe and further afield really in order to deliver the services that they are in the UK. Mm-hmm. So that's one way that we can perhaps more closely work together and deliver what we need to do in the end.
Looking into the future for the next years, how do you plan and how do you make the strategy of Brisk in UK with all the global partners, because you are not working only with European communities and business partners from Europe, but globally. How do you see the strategy for the next years? And
so I'm very keen to continue working on large European and Saudi, Middle Eastern projects in order to have a strategy around splitting out different work areas, because within the UK context there is work starting to come around, but by far the big and interesting projects are still quite abroad in a post-COVID or post-pandemic world. So it's going to take some time, I think, before UK projects are back quite to where they were, particularly in the airports sector, which is my focus. So I think continuing on with that, and already we're seeing some very large projects on the horizon. There's a big airport in Warsaw as a hub that's being proposed. Heathrow, Manchester, Gatwick, all these airports have lots of capacity challenges that they're dealing with on a day-by-day basis, and big programs of work too, which over the next 5 or 10 years will increase. And once again, the skills demand necessary for to deliver those kind of projects are going to be critical. And hopefully, by working with Brisk Group in Romania, that's something where we can add real value. So that's the kind of strategy. It's to grow the UK. To at the moment, we're able to deliver these projects by resourcing them from Romania. But I think as we grow in the UK, we'll be able to have a face to more of these projects and then work out more as we grow. So it's a open business model from my perspective here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the things are changing really fast, as I see, and the living costs are growing up globally, and the pressure that you feel, it's so much higher. And I can see some of the people, they don't want to work anymore in different conditions, like with stress, with a lot of pressure on them. We've seen a lot of countries implementing the 4 days work week and many other models of working remote and so on. So I think this is a challenge, and also is an opportunity of some companies to attract these talented skills that they want to stay a little back protected about what is happening in the world. So how do you see this type of workforce that is working even remotely, even part of them working a few days a week?
Absolutely. That is one big change in over the last sort of 3 years, is that in the office today, it's being Friday, it's pretty much empty. A lot of people are working from home, and certainly being a business that's flexible now, that is expected. And so we need to give our people the opportunity to work flexibly in order to best suit their lifestyle, and certainly that's the approach you take in the UK. So it seems it's no longer necessary to be in the office. However, some people prefer to be in the office because perhaps it's less useful to work at home or whatever. And so I think flexibility is the key with all of this, and what works for what makes one person more efficient will be different to the next, and that's why that flexibility is key. But that is a massive change in the last, and even in my own working, my own ways of working have changed. I used to be, 5 days a week in the office, and now it's not quite like that.
It looks like quiet in the offices. I hope in the pubs is not so quiet. Even though looking at the costs, we don't know what to say. Mr. Brownlee, as we are about to end this interview, please, we want to make a short conclusion of what we discussed and about how the Brisk is reshaping the model business globally in airport industry and not.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I think it's been interesting to talk to you and made me think about a few things that we should perhaps refocus on as well around, particularly in terms of travel and how we go about it. I think, as you mentioned, going forward, we need to be, from a business perspective, we need to be a bit broader than just the airports, because as we've seen, they are subject to fluctuations with things like pandemics or terrorist acts and other security issues like that. And so to strengthen the business, I think we need to look in sectors where we can add value around those master plans. I know within the Romanian context, residential is another sector where there's been issues around that have changed over the years. So I think beyond infrastructure and airport infrastructure, we'll be looking to diversify more in order to have a more resilient business going forward. And then within the service office as well, I think the design management will be looking into strengthening project management activities, project controls and planning, which currently we're doing from Romania. So that's us looking forward.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for having this discussion with us in our TV program, and good luck with the projects that you have ongoing, and keeping up with the new business strategies that are growing up day by day in different circumstances.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Doamnelor, domnilor, a fost o discuție cu directorul regional al companiei Brisk în Marea Britanie. Sper că v-am stârnit curiozitatea, v-am atras atenția cu câteva topicuri interesante despre cum se schimbă industria aeronautică și care sunt elementele principale în businessul pe care compania fondată în România îl duce la nivel global. Rămâneți alături de Profit News pentru alte informații economice, alte interviuri cu antreprenori, cu povești de succes și cu companii care aduc plus valoare economiei românești și nu numai. Vă mulțumesc că ne-ați urmărit, rămâneți pe Profit.